So I'm going to talk about the attack on democracy that's happening around the world, but I'm going to focus specifically on Europe because, I'm worried that we're moving in an anti-democratic direction in Europe. We know that across the pond, democracy is in a pretty parlous state at the moment. So, according to Glenn Kirshner, who's a U.S. attorney with 30 years' experience, who's a legal analyst for NBC and MSNBC News, so obviously, a leftist, part of the leftist establishment. He says Trump has an extremely high chance of being convicted in 2024. And Trump is facing 91 charges across 4 criminal trials. There's also civil cases against him as well. While he's not expected to face all 4 trials in 2024, some trial dates have been set, and the first is the 4th of March for Trump's alleged role around the January 6th insurrection. So, and it's pretty much being pinned on him. If you see it discussed in The Guardian or whatever, they're openly saying Trump incited it. They're prejudging his case. So, the establishment is going to do whatever it can to use lawfare to bring Trump down. We know that's happening. And we know that this isn't the first time the government, the Democrats, the left-wing establishment have tried to subvert democracy. In the 2020 election, the Democrats colluded with the executive wings of government, such as the FBI, and with big tech companies to suppress stories harmful to Biden's electoral chances. The most notable being the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, which revealed details of all kinds of malfeasance and criminality, fraud, payments from foreign regimes to Biden family members, smoking crack, paying for sex possibly with government funds, which is a super mega offense. That's like, what I mean? That's like an offense squared.
In a previous era, it would have been a super mega offense. Biden's still wandering around scot free.
Yeah, bizarrely. And there's the House Oversight Committee that are investigating.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman too. I used the state's money to have sexual relations with that woman.
And I left my bag of Coke in the White House. Can I have it back, please?
Literally. And ironically, Trump is called a fascist, but the co-opting of executive arms of government and corporations into an undemocratic government is actually much closer to the realities of fascism, which is something that seems to be completely lost. And all the people who are saying, Trump is a threat to democracy. We must completely subvert democracy to stop him ever getting elected. But I'm not going to look at that because it'll take too long to look at them all. I'm just going to look at Europe. There's a repeating pattern across Europe of the cordon sanitaire put around any right-wing party that gets electoral support. So cordon sanitaire is when other parties refuse to work with that party. It's, sort of like walling off the shit, basically.
I haven't been following this, but I'm going to guess that the AfD broke 30% in the polls.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly on track. I haven't actually seen the most recent poll results, but they're doing incredibly well.
Right.
I'll get to them in a moment.
Sorry to interrupt the video, but I thought I'd announce that we have a new line of merch. This is our aesthetics collection. So I was thinking that in the face of AI art debasing the very concept of art, actually we'd do something quite positive. So we commissioned a series of paintings that were actually really beautiful and could be something that we could present outside of politics. So for example, we have this magnificent painting of a ship weathering a storm, which I thought was just really nice. And we have, of course, a glorious, sort of surrealist, giant white tiger drinking from a lake. But also there are other things that are just kind of interesting, such as the chap lost in cyberspace, or something that I thought might, in time for Christmas, make a great present for your mum or something like that. A beautiful cat lounging on some clouds. Basically, we wanted to do some stuff that wasn't just political, so things that were just nice and beautiful and interesting, because that's also a part of the world we want to curate. So you can go over to shop.lotuses.com. Buying the merch is a really great way of supporting us and means that we can live past demonetization. And I'm sure they make great gifts for the folks as well.
I'll go through a few of the other European parties that have had cordon sanitaires around them. In Sweden, the political parties in the parliament there adopted a policy of non-cooperation with the right-wing Sweden Democrats, which is now the biggest party in the Swedish parliament. So, I mean, cordon sanitaires, eventually they break open. And since 2012, all major parties in the Netherlands refused to cooperate with Geert Wilders' PVV, and they're now the biggest party in the parliament there. So there's a pattern developing. In 2003, a majority of the Parliament of Catalonia refused to work with the right of centre centralist People's Party. So they're not even a far right or far left party. So sometimes people use these cordon sanitaires just to sort of improve their own electoral chances and increase their own power.
Well, it exposes something, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, whatever this coalition is, really, that's just one party. And then there's us, the actual opposition.
Yeah. And in France, like they had a cordon sanitaire against Marie Le Pen in the national rally, and they've sort of recently sort of detoxified their party, so more people are working with them.
Or France got worse.
Yeah.
Both, actually, I think.
And a cordon sanitaire, it happens less in the UK because we have a sort of majoritarian system, first past the post instead of proportional representation. So fringe parties tend to not get any seats. So there's no need to wall them off. Although all parties refuse to work with the British National Party. But yeah, looking at France and this cordon sanitaire against Marine Le Pen and the national rally, like what happens when a cordon sanitaire backfires? Eventually, they all crumble because if anything, it's sort of people feel that they're not getting a chance to vote, or they're not being listened to, so then they vote harder, and more people vote for that person.
But it brings to attention the issue that the party that's sort of the insurgent party is trying to bring to light.
Yeah.
And every other party validates it by saying, right, we won't work with them because we're morally opposed to whatever. We're morally opposed to preventing French kids from being murdered or something.
Yeah.
And, well, that's
tells me more about you guys.
Yeah, well, exactly. They're like, we're morally opposed to making sure that France isn't subsumed in legal immigration. We're morally opposed. And it's like, okay, well, then that tells everyone. You're just telegraphing to the entire nation. If you want that problem ended, you've only got one solution. So, Geert Wilders, okay, when the Palestine stuff happened, and Geert Wilders was like, maybe these people should probably not be here. Up in the polls.
Yeah.
It's just like you just tell everyone that's the guy to vote for.
Yeah, and people really resent being told who to vote for and who, and also casting a vote and then not seeing the person that they voted for that got all these votes, not being able to enact the will of the people. Yeah. You can see with people in America are saying like I don't like Trump, but let me have the choice at the polling booth. Let me choose whether to vote for him or not. Don't hobble him or take him out of the race unfairly. And what happened in France was quite interesting because France recently passed an immigration law that was surprisingly robust, given that Macron is a total centrist. So they've got longer delays for non-EU foreigners to get welfare, so they're going to have to wait 5 years before they get any welfare.
Good idea.
It's never going to happen here.
No.
They're going to have a reform of state medical care for non-EU foreigners, so that would end medical tourism. People coming, having their babies and whatever, and they're going to end. I mean, quite a big one was ending the sort of automatic birthright citizenship. So if you're born in France, you don't automatically have citizenship anymore. So they'll have to request citizenship between the age of 16 and 18, and they'll take the parents' citizenship instead. There's going to be the possibility of the withdrawal of nationality, so dual national people convicted of certain crimes, the pretty extreme crimes, the voluntary homicide of a police officer or government representative, can have their French nationality withdrawn. I mean, that's such a fringe case. There's not that many voluntary homicides of police officers or government representatives.
It's a good precedent.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, if we do it for the police, why can't we do it for a regular citizen?
It can expand out, and
exactly.
Yeah. And eventually, people will be like, "Well, maybe I'll stop killing people. maybe I won't behead the school teacher.
I'll go to jail."
I mean, it just happens so often.
Yeah.
That maybe they won't think that. But anyway.
Yeah. Foreign students are going to give a guaranteed deposit. So, like, a stag do go into a comedy club, you all pay 20 quid, and then you get that 20 quid back each if you don't throw any drinks.
How weird that last point actually was for a minute. Because if you've got dual citizenship, so you remember like that Chechen guy.
Yeah.
I just imagine him killing someone like a police officer or
and he's the one who beheaded the school teacher.
Yeah, and then being like, I'm French. It's like, no, mate. Like, you're literally Chechen.
Yeah.
You did it because of Chechen reasons.
Yeah, and you did it according to the values of extremist
Glorious
Islam.
Chechnya. Like,
yeah.
what do you want?
So that's and this is the thing that people have, I think, for too long, Western Europe has been like, oh, we've got magic soil. We can invite all these people here. And as soon as they step off the boat and step onto French soil or British soil or whatever, they're going to suddenly become imbued with Western values of tolerance and not beheading people because they showed a cartoon in class. And it doesn't work like that.
That's just
values, the values don't evaporate on the boat. Also, family reunification rules are being tightened, so you can't, at the moment, if somebody comes here as a worker or a student, you can bring the village with you. That's going to be
bring
tightened
the
up.
village with you, and that's literally how it works. God damn it!
Yeah, and they're also wives are going to have to be older, so no more child brides being brought in from overseas.
These all sound like perfectly reasonable rules.
They are perfectly sensible, reasonable rules. But they were seen by the sort of centrist establishment as just horrific, racist, blah, 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 everything else.
Yeah, by the people who are morally opposed to preventing your children from being raped.
Yeah.
And that's literally what they are.
Yeah.
Vote for me.
Yeah, vote for us.
Yeah, so, what's interesting is that these rules that are seen as so far right actually got passed by Macron's centrist government.
Right.
And it happened because of the cordon sanitaire. If they hadn't been trying to exclude Marine Le Pen and these ideas, then it's very likely that these ideas would have been watered down because opposition parties refused to even debate the immigration bill in Parliament.
We need as many foreign murderers in the country as possible. So we're not even debating this. You are beneath our contempt. So if you won't allow every single Moroccan rapist and stabber, then no dice.
Basically, yeah.
It's literally what they're saying.
Trust me, this soil is magic. As soon as he steps on it.
So, because
it is like a druid, actually, coming up to you.
Because they refused to debate it, this compromise text was swiftly drawn up by a special parliamentary committee with, very little oversight or input from all these like raving leftists. And as a result, the centrist government put forward a much tougher right-wing bill that Marine Le Pen is seen as. She's declared it as an ideological victory.
Oh, yeah.
And it is incredible.
And she should.
It's more than what she would have been able to do if she was actually in power.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And there's been some backlash. Macron's health minister, Aurélien Rousseau, resigned to show his opposition.
Now not enough people are going to get murdered. I'm done. No, I can't.
France is finished. Billions must die.
No, France is finished. Billions won't die.
And Macron just said, I respect him, and then very quickly replaced him.
I respect his moral stand.
Yeah. But if we look, this week, the AfD have been in the news quite a lot because politicians from Germany's far-right Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD party, met the head of the right-wing extremist identitarian movement and neo-Nazi activists to discuss a master plan for mass deportations in the event of the party coming to power. The meeting, which was first reported on Wednesday, took place last November at the Countryside Hotel in the outskirts of Potsdam. It's likely to feed a fraught debate over whether the AfD should be banned due to growing concerns that it poses a fundamental threat to German democracy. So they're debating
German democracy.
They're debating
is foreigners.
They're debating banning a political party to help democracy. That's not how democracy works. Democracy is where the people get to vote. If the people don't like the AfD, they won't vote for them. But it just so happens the AfD are one of the biggest parties, if not the biggest party in Germany at the moment. They're in first place in all 5 of Germany's eastern states, 3 of which are holding elections later this year.
But there's something deeper there that you just mentioned, which is like, the AfD didn't promise to blow up the Reichstag.
Yeah.
They didn't promise to ban everyone else from running. They said, we will deport foreign criminals. And they were like, well, that's a threat to all of Germany.
Yeah.
So what is all of Germany?
They're literally just suggesting stuff that's similar to what Macron, the centrist Uber hero of France, is put into place.
So in the German leftist mind, Germany is not the German people or the nation or the land. It is the people we bring in.
Yeah.
That's it.
In December, the AfD passed 23%.
Wow.
So they're quite significant. At this point. So that's
especially with the riots and the protests.
Yeah. Just the amount of women being raped,
Did you see what happened during the Palestine stuff? I don't know if you did.
No.
Even Antifa in Germany became pro-Israel.
Right.
because there's just so much German guilt. They were like, we can't cross that. That's that Rubicon can't be taken.
Yeah, well, I've seen footage of the BBC did a documentary on this.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Germans
no.
leaving to go to Paraguay.
No. Sorry, just a quick thing. We can't deport the anti-Semites. We're German. Sorry, carry on.
All right.
Yeah, some of
How many
the
years did you live there?
8.
some of the Muslim youth have been, throwing Sieg Heils and all the rest. Because they're like big fans of Hitler.
Yep.
Because
Hitler
so,
was a German, we can't get rid of him.
and they're a bit more confident about displaying that anti-Semitism than your average Western anti-Semite would be, because nobody slaps them down because they got special status on the oppression pyramid.
We can't get rid of these people who have clearly integrated in German history.
They integrated too hard. They took it too far.
I'm just saying, it's authentically German. Look at them.
And it's not the first time. It's not the first time they've tried to bring down the AfD using lawfare, and this is what they're trying to do with Trump as well. In 2022, the AfD headquarters were searched by prosecution officials. It was purportedly because of errors in accounting, but they were gathering, hard drives and all the rest of it. It's a phishing exercise, basically. And what I find interesting about the cordon sanitaires around right-wing parties is that you see right-wing politicians referred to as populist, and it's always said sort of sneeringly.
Oh no, doing what the voters want.
Oh yeah, literally, as if that's not what democracy should be. And also, they suggest that right-wing parties, right-wing politicians are just pretending to espouse right-wing political positions in order to gain popularity. They're sort of like Fall fans sneering at Coldplay fans for liking some that's or Def Leppard fans for liking some that's popular. But I've never met a right-wing person or a right-wing politician who I've felt holds their political position because it's politically expedient or lucrative or somehow the easier thing to do. It's always the harder thing to do.
How could you be like, I'm going to make loads of money by becoming an extreme right-winger and getting everything shut down and deplatformed for everything and demonetized? And sorry, that's not where the money is.
Never been able to work again and being a pariah and all the rest of it. Like all the people on the right that meant they're generally, even if I don't agree with them, they believe it.
They're sincere.
They're sincere. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Whereas pretending to be left wing can be very lucrative.
Lots of NGO money.
Yeah, look at 99% of comedians. And speaking of NGOs, so this is another way I think democracy is being subverted in the West. So Charlie Flanagan is an Irish politician. He gave an interview to the Irish Times as he retired from politics, and he's a pretty liberal guy. He voted for divorce. He voted for same-sex marriage. He voted to repeal the 8th Amendment, and also voted for the abortion legislation that followed it. But he's worried about the direction that the progressive agenda is moving Ireland in. So he says
we're letting in slightly too many murderers. We need 50% fewer murderers let into Ireland.
Yeah, and some of them are. There's some homophobic murders in the west of Ireland. I think it's Sligo. And
I can't believe the Irish would do this.
A Muslim guy. Well, they tried to blame it. The
of course they did.
Ireland, the liberal media was all like, "Oh, this man had internalized Catholic homophobia." Like he's an Islamic extremist, and you're saying he's got internalized Catholic homophobia because he's suddenly become immersed in Irish culture. Are you what? Of all the
magic dirt made him do it, Leo.
Made him Catholic.
It's absolutely mental. So yeah, this guy Charlie Flanagan, he gives an insight into Irish politics. He says the liberal agenda has accelerated in recent years in a way that causes me discomfort. It's about euthanasia. It's a very radical ideological transgender agenda. It's commercial surrogacy and a move towards liberalized abortion, completely different from that which I voted for 5 years ago. But he says he hasn't suddenly become a raving right-wing extremist bigot, but he does.
I still want Irish people to get killed by immigrants, just not this quickly, guys.
Yeah.
So I have no respect for the pro-argument with the number of murders that have gone on, the number of stabbings, the number of rapes, the number of terrorist explosions. It's like, no, that if you want mass immigration, that's what you're asking for.
Yeah,
you know, that is precisely what you're for. And so I'm just so done with it.
And especially when you have a an immigration policy that isn't cherry picking.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we can do, one of the things that Australia does well, is it cherry picks the best people. You've got to reach points and all this sort of stuff.
We've got a doctor with 20 years experience and a really solid track record, no criminal record. Yeah, okay, he can come.
Yeah.
That one guy can come. That's fine. He can marry an Australian woman. Boom, done, sorted.
Yeah.
We've added something to our country. No, we're just letting every Mohammed east of the bloody Istanbul.
Yeah, and
like,
and if you've got something like what they've got in America now, it's actually it's anti-civilizational. It's anti us. I mean, I couldn't just. I'm not one of the people who can just rock up to Mexico and walk across the border and be treated as a refugee, because people will be like, wait a minute, you're not what, you're a refugee from Scotland. I know Scotland is in a worse state than most third world countries. It's got a lower life expectancy than Gaza. But
you should go there and make this case. Actually,
the Mexicans are just like, oh man, it's terrible.
But yeah, you've got a system in a lot of Western countries at the moment where you're sort of selecting just for the sort of the people who are going to be the biggest drain on resources and the worst impact on society.
And we tell them that they're going to get all our money. It's like, come over, we're going to put you up in a hotel. It's like, well, I don't get put up in a bloody hotel. Like, oh, I hate it, man.
But one thing that this guy Charlie Flanagan mentions is there's a dangerous intolerance of any view that is not being pushed by vociferous, well-financed, and well-funded non-governmental organizations. And he said, he says, if I wanted to have more influence on government policy, I'd become an official with an NGO than being an actual politician. And this is interesting. The way NGOs influence government is summed up in the National Review. So Ireland and other European nations are notable for having the government fund non-governmental organisations to manage and represent certain problems for constituencies. These organisations then lobby the government directly, and governments treat the reports as if they're coming from citizens themselves. Yeah. So the government has chosen, people in the government know what opinion they want to hear. They know what policy they want to put forward. But they can't just do that, because that's not democracy. So they pay NGOs, they fund NGOs who then lobby the government with what they're being paid to lobby the government with, and then the government can be like, well, look, these people want this. So then you get, in Ireland, for example, their immigration laws have become vastly detached from what the actual general population want. Population growth in Ireland is, I think it was at 12.7% a year compared to that's like almost 10 times the rest of Western Europe. And the amount of money that goes to these NGOs is insane. So, the annual defence budget is under €1 billion in Ireland. The annual sum allocated to support the work of NGOs in Ireland is almost €9 billion. Do
you know how big the Irish army is?
Probably not very big.
7,000 men.
Right.
I looked it up the other day, because it's literally like, okay, so you're bringing in literally tens of thousands of these people every year, and you have your entire army is 7,000 men.
Yeah.
So if they all got together and were like, Ahmed, yes, Mohammed, I think there are loads of us. I think there are actually.
Really? You think so?
No. I think there were like 100,000 of us, and I just Googled it, like Sargon of Akkad did, and it turns out they've only got 7,000 men. We've got 100,000 men. Just saying, Ahmed.
And do you think they'd then be like, Britain, would you mind invading us again?
Well, yeah, exactly. No, we're literally like, okay, I think we're going to have to ask the Brits.
Yeah, I think those 7,000
deep embarrassment.
Those 7,000 men are just to keep Britain out.
Yeah, no, they're not to keep anyone out. What they are is to support the police when the police need help in a particular area.
Right.
So they're just an occupational force against the Irish. They're not going to keep the British army out.
Yeah.
They're not going to keep the French army out or anything like that. They're just 7,000 men. It's not going to do anything.
And is Ireland in NATO?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Right, cool.
I assume it is. I'm just going to guess. But.
And yes, so the amount of money that the Irish government spends on NGOs is 8% of the government budget. Like, it's an proportionately insane amount of money. And this is why, you build up to the situation where you got riots, because NGOs are pushing policy in one direction, and it's completely away from, where the population actually wants the policy to go. We've got a similar thing in Scotland, just because, it's a small insular political network in Scotland, and there's a lot of sort of special interest groups and NGOs that have the government's ear. So the government gets sort of tricked into thinking that's what people want, when no, that's just what a few obese non-binary people with blue hair want. And in the UK, another threat to democracy is civil service government staff refusing to work with the government. So
Yep.
we vote for a government, we vote for Boris Johnson or whatever. When we don't get Boris Johnson, I mean, I guess that's another threat to democracy. The fact that you get the person you vote for about 2 years and then they're replaced by somebody you don't, and then the person that they're replaced with is replaced with someone else. But anyway, Home Office staff say that they'll refuse to implement the Rwanda plan.
Yeah.
And staff have called for industrial action in a bid to stop the policy. One civil servant felt that their situation was analogous to working for the Third Reich.
Oh, come on. I mean, literally one of these examples, like the deportation has been so unbelievably small. There was one where there was a repeated rapist who was put on a plane to go to Jamaica, and a bunch of white British women were like, don't deport. It's like, literally, you're like pro-rapist.
Yeah.
You're actually there going like, no, you can't send this rapist out of the country. It's like,
He's
look,
not finished his work.
like, stop it. He is a rapist. He's been convicted. He's been to jail. Get rid of him.
But for
They were dealing with
Western,
the worst person.
for Western liberal women, rape is when a man puts his hand on a middle class woman's knee. It's not when working class girls are raped. It's not, it's not when Jews are raped in Israel. It's very specific, just to the victims of Harvey
That's
Weinstein.
resistance.
But yeah, this idea, like the civil service are refusing to enact the government's will. That's anti-democratic. People don't elect the civil. I know the civil service should act as a sort of ballast that restrains the government a little bit, but this is ridiculous. And also, if you think you're working for the Third Reich, quit. You can quit. You don't have to work for the civil service. Jesus, go and get a job in the private sector with all your valuable experience. Yeah, and I think the long-term trend. The long-term trend is just for the West to have this inevitable.
That's exactly right. It's like you're 1938 and you're in the German civil service. And like, look, I'm just not really in favor of gassing the Jews. I'm just not in favor of it.
There were other jobs available in Nazi Germany.
It's like, I'm going to go on strike. It's like, what? You're going to go on strike? You're not going to quit? You're not going to leave? You're not going to do anything? No. I'm just going to. Right, we've got 2 weeks strike and then we'll get back to it.
I'm just going to quiet quit doing the Holocaust.
Yeah. I'm just not going to put my full effort into it. This Friday afternoon, I'm just going to put my feet up. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like if you're a conscientious objector, you go out and make the objection.
Yeah. Put your, I know it's paying your mortgage, but come on, have some moral. If you really think you're working for the Third Reich, it's ridiculous. Yeah, there's this inevitable drift towards communism in the West. I mean, there's a saying that all organizations that aren't set up with an explicitly right-wing bias inevitably drift leftward. I mean, it's happening to Lotus eaters.
Conquests. Are you insane?
You got me on.
Oh yeah, I guess so. But no, that's conquest like second law, I think it is.
Right.
Yeah. But it's totally true.
Yeah. And the share of GDP that is spent by the state is just gradually ratcheting up year on year. There's if we move along to the Economist article, there is. I mean, this is going back to the 1870s where taxes were a lot lower. And everybody was a lot happier. But you can see, I mean, this is insane. We're looking at over 60% in a lot of European countries for the proportion of GDP that's spent by the government. And
it's a good question by Lauren Southern. Now, what percentage exactly are you just a communist country?
Yeah.
Because most people would say over 50, right? So if half of the...
So Austria is at that point.
Yeah, if half
France
of the economy...
is at that point. Germany's at that point. Italy's at that point. Spain is nearly at that point. Sweden's definitely at that point. And the United States is at, 45, nearly 50%. We're probably almost at that point as well. So
yeah,
you could see it there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Soviet Union was never 100% either. Like there was a black market, which was literally just private ownership,
and which was where a lot of the value was created because there wasn't much happening in this
There's nothing else happening. So.
Yeah. So this is something that worries me. Where this is going to be, unless we get everyone gets a Javier Milei. I think we need Oprah.
Can you imagine
Oprah Winfrey to come out and be like, "You get a Javier Milei, get a Javier Milei," and we all, and then he can just be like, "Afuera." Tear up every useless. Because I was just this week I was reading about the Minister for Sport is going after Joey Barton for offensive comments. It's like, why have we got a government department that's tasked with dealing with Joey Barton's tweets? This is not something I want my taxes spent on. It's ridiculous. The Arts Council. Why have we got an Arts Council?
Yeah.
If people don't want to buy tickets, they would why have we got to subsidize ballet? Why have poor people's taxes got to subsidize the follies of wealthy people?
I'm glad you bring this up because I'm going to talk about this in my segment.
Good. That's my
There we
segment
are.
finished.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium contents on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on King John, Part 1. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.